We love it when strange, unusual, and unexpected things turn up in places nobody thought they'd find them. They're all reminders that life is constantly surprising and unpredictable, and you never know what's around the corner. On this channel, we love to bring you incredible and mysterious finds, and this video is full of them. Whether they're animal, mineral, vegetable, or even possibly alien, here are some bizarre recent discoveries that have caught our eye, and they're bound to catch yours too. If you're afraid of bats, just be glad that you weren't around 30,000 years ago, when bats would have been the least of your worries if you were living in the Primory region of Russia. You'd have had to contend with a giant species of flying squirrels. The remains of the squirrels, which lived during the Paleolithic era on Earth, have been discovered this year in a cave in Sukhoi. Based on the jaws, teeth, and other bones found in the cave, scientists believe that the squirrels would have been around 5 feet tall, capable of flying up to 150 feet in the air. The previously undiscovered species has been given the name Pitorista techucensis. As nothing like this has ever been found anywhere else in the world, it's possible that the strange squirrels were confined only to this location. Flying squirrels still exist in the world today, but they're nothing close to the size of these huge creatures. Ever since the success of the Dan Brown novel The Da Vinci Code, which was turned into a movie, there's been great interest in the secrets of the ancient Knights Templar. Now, one of those secrets has been uncovered directly beneath modern Israel. A whole network of tunnels built by and belonging to the Knights Templar has been unearthed, and they lead straight to a top-secret treasure tower. The tunnels are below what's now the city of Acre, and would have been used 8 centuries ago by the Knights to move and stash away their gold reserves secretly. It's thought that the site would have been a key fortress for the Knights during the time of the Third Crusade. Modern scanning technology was used to prove the existence of the tunnels and chambers, which sit below many feet of rock. The tower at the center of the tunnels may even still be full of gold today, but it's thought that excavation work to reach it might be so difficult that it verges on the impossible. We think of the United Arab Emirates as a land of fabulous riches and incredible architecture, but it also contains strange mysteries, like the ghost village that sits just outside of Al Madam. It was built during the 1970s and 1980s, but was abandoned in mysterious circumstances. Some of the residents of Al Madam will tell you that it was attacked by demons that lived within the sand and drove the residents away in terror. What's left of the village is now half buried by sand and is eerily silent and still. A more likely explanation might be that the desert simply wasn't a great place to build the town. But how is it that the inhabitants got as far as building a beautiful mosque before they had to give up and move away? Stranger still, nobody in the area knows anyone who used to live here. It's like the residents simply disappeared into thin air. Such is the local level of fear that something supernatural exists within the sand that the local Bedouin people won't set foot in the village. So whoever went there to get all this footage was brave. The Bisty Badlands of New Mexico appear to be covered in egg sculptures mounted on strange stone plinths. So, are they an eccentric celebration of Easter? No, they're not. They are actually the result of millions of years of erosion and weathering, leaving behind a strange egg-shaped monument in their wake. 73 million years ago, during the Cretaceous period, the desert was actually a sea. As the water ebbed away over the eons, it left behind sedimentary rocks like mudstone, shale, and sandstone, all of which were shaped by the tide. Streams continued to run across the land, slowly carving patterns and channels into the rock, and also leaving behind mineral deposits which give these egg-like rocks their unusual colors. The mudstone parts of the eggs weather faster than the sandstone, which results in the cracking that appears on some of them. Some of them are more than 6 feet long, and you could be forgiven for thinking they might be the fossilized eggs of giant dinosaurs. Had human hands carved these stones, we'd celebrate them as incredible works of art. The invention of Google Earth has made it possible for anybody with access to the internet, time on their hands, and a keen eye for detail to spot things that scientists and archaeologists may have missed. Hard to believe as it may be now, we had no idea that these 9,000-year-old gates in Saudi Arabia existed until Google photographed them from above and put them online for other people to discover. There are more than 400 of the so-called gates, which are rocky walls arranged into complex shapes. Some of them have the appearance of keyholes, whereas others look more like a bullseye. It's thought that the ancestors of modern Bedouin tribes may have built them, but we have no idea what for. They may have been hunting aids. Edible prey, such as gazelles, could have been funneled into the gates and then gathered tightly together, making them easier to snare for meat. Why, though, did the ancient people decide to make these shapes in barren lava fields, where the terrain was rough and unforgiving? We simply have no idea. The plant Thismia neptunus is a rare and shy plant, so much so that we assumed it had become extinct 150 years ago. We assumed incorrectly. The plant has been rediscovered in Malaysia, and nobody understands how it's been able to hide away without detection for such a long time, or why it's suddenly back. The strange-looking plants spend almost their entire life cycle below the ground, only ever emerging on the surface when they choose to bloom. Until 2018, the last time anyone had seen the unusual flower, which is barely 3 inches tall and is nicknamed the fairy lantern, was 1866. Just to make things even weirder, it's turned up in the exact same location it was last noticed. It's not the prettiest plant in the world. Some people think the bloom looks a little like an alien egg, and the antennae that poke out of it don't do much to stop people speculating it may have extraterrestrial origins. Researchers can't even say for sure how the plant might be pollinated. If you have a hard time believing that modern humans evolved from apes, you're going to be even more troubled by this latest theory. A team of scientists working in China thinks we might owe our jawbones to an ancient and newly discovered species of fish. The theory stems from a 420 million-year-old fossil belonging to a fish that scientists have named Quilin Yu, a type of placoderm. The bones of the sea creature's jaw are remarkably similar to our own, so much so that experts have been forced to conclude that there might be a connection. The discovery plays into another theory that is becoming increasingly widely accepted, that the dentary bones found in the jaws of many modern animals have evolved from tetrapods and bony fishes that existed millions of years ago. Could this species of fish have been the first to crawl up onto the land 400 million years ago and begin the evolutionary trail that led us to where we are today? We're a long way off from being able to say that's the case definitely, but it definitely had the right teeth for the job. Before you throw or give anything away, you should take great care to check over it one more time and make sure it isn't hiding anything valuable, especially when you're disposing of an old safe. 2 rusting old safes recently turned up at a scrap metal dealer's yard in Ipswich, England, and when they were cut into to start the recycling process, they were found to contain more than 20,000 pounds in banknotes. All of the money was carefully stored, with the banknotes bound together and the coins stashed away in bags. Some of the notes were so old that they were out of circulation, suggesting they'd been hidden for decades. They were a little damp and musty, but the Bank of England was still prepared to accept them as legal tender. Nobody ever came forward to claim the money, so the scrapyard kindly donated their surprise find to charity. Would you have been so generous in the same circumstances? This next discovery is so significant that the team responsible for it claimed that it proves the reality of a story from the Bible, and they could easily be right. Archaeologists working at Mount Zion in Jerusalem have dug up gold, jewelry, and arrowheads among piles of burnt wood and ash, and they believe the artifacts to be more than 2,600 years old. That would suggest that they date back to the Babylonian conquest of the city, which the Bible claims to have occurred in the year 586 BCE. and the sheer volume of arrowheads seems to suggest that some kind of violent conflict occurred at that time. Kings 25:1 speaks of the city falling under siege during that year, with warriors burning down houses and destroying everything they found. As it's unlikely that such a large quantity of jewelry would have been abandoned voluntarily, the spoils of that siege may finally have been unearthed. Excavation work is still ongoing at the site and is scheduled to run on well into 2020, so even more exciting discoveries may still be laying in wait for the experts. During the start of this video, we promised you aliens, and here they are. Or are they? Not much is known about this discovery, other than the fact that it comes from Russia, and the footage was taken by so-called dark archaeologists who spend their time digging into the ground at sites where there have been stories of UFO sightings or strange activity. The images are grainy, but they show an alien-looking sculpture being pulled out of the ground. The figure looks similar to the textbook description of gray aliens, the kind which many people around the world claim to have either seen or been abducted by. As many people have pointed out, though, the figure looks remarkably clean for something which has supposedly been buried in the earth for centuries. Is this a statue left behind by some long-forgotten race of alien worshippers, or is it just a hoax carried out by a few bored Russians looking for internet fame? We'll let you be the judge of that. Boxing has been around as a sport for almost as long as humans have walked the earth. It seems that there have always been athletes willing to fight each other for supremacy, and there have always been crowds willing to cheer them on, too. The earliest references we have to boxing as a sport date back 3,000 years to ancient Egypt, but a recent discovery in Northumbria, England, has proven that the ancient Romans were fans of the sweet science, too. Found at the region's Vindolanda Roman fort, these two leathery lumps are primitive boxing gloves, and they're around 1900 years old. Although we know that the Romans enjoyed boxing, these are the only two surviving gloves that have ever been found. It's thought that different units within the Roman army would battle each other in boxing matches for bragging rights and supremacy, although it was also known that their friends enjoyed gambling on the outcome of the contests too. This particular pair were well worn and loved. Their owner thought enough of them to patch them up, rather than throwing them away. If there's anywhere in England you'd imagine that it would be safe to store something, it's the Houses of Parliament. Despite that, this fine carved stone sculpture of Queen Victoria somehow went missing from the home of British democracy for more than a century. The life-sized statue, which is 5 feet and 6 inches tall, was eventually discovered in the shrubbery of a house in Hampshire, 97 miles away from Parliament. Tellingly, the property once belonged to a descendant of former British Prime Minister William Gladstone. It appears that Gladstone must have taken a liking to the statue and took it with him when he left Parliament for the last time. Official records state that the sculpture was first noted to be missing during restoration work during the early 20th century. So Gladstone didn't tell anybody about his keepsake. All these years exposed to the elements have weathered the finer points of the Queen's likeness somewhat, but that didn't stop it fetching more than £10,000 at auction. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, and you will be the first to know when a new video comes out. Thank you for watching, and see you soon.